Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second breakfast briefing of the week as part of Hammersmith and Fulham Climate Carnival. And today's session is on travel. So why are we here? Next week, Glasgow will play host to COP26, which is the UN Climate Change Conference. So world leaders will be descending on Glasgow to discuss the climate emergency and our contribution and how we can mitigate against that. But we know that, no matter what happens in these international discussions, the action that's going to be needed to act on the climate and ecological emergency will happen on a local level. So that's why we're running this week of events and activities. We've got a program of over 50 things which are happening this week, which are showing fantastic things that are already happening in the borough from residents and organisations who are already taking action on climate change, as well as education and awareness sessions and local projects and things you can get involved in. So I would really urge everyone to check out the program there. There's a fantastic list. We've got about 10 events on today, so we can touch on some of those at the end as well. And we have recently published our strategy, our climate and ecology strategy, which is called H&F 2030. And this sets out our route to get to net zero emissions across the whole borough. So not just the council's activities, but the whole borough by 2030. So we have what we call 3 climate challenges. And this is how we need to eliminate our emissions from our homes, buildings and energy, our transport and our travel, which we'll cover in the session today, and the things that we use. So that's the food that we eat and the things that we buy. So if you're interested in things we use, please come along to our breakfast session tomorrow morning as well. Our strategy also sets out how we're going to protect people and nature. So both making space for nature in the borough and enhancing biodiversity, and also preparing for some of those changes that are already underway. So how are we going to protect people and planet from hotter summers and from risks of flooding in particular? And then at the bottom, this is what we call our 3 enablers. So how are we going to engage and galvanize our communities to act? How can we make every decision and every financial decision support net zero across the council? And how can we grasp some of those opportunities from the growing sustainability sector and deliver green skills and jobs for residents as well? So just a little plug for our event on Thursday morning, which is the Climate Summit, which will be really focused on the green economy and the role of organisations. So just to get started, I'd like to hand over to Councillor Wesley Harcourt, Cabinet Member for Environment, who will say a few words to welcome everyone this morning.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see so many of you here so early in the morning. Obviously shows just how important this issue is for all of us. Many thanks for coming along to today's event, which, as Emily's just said, is part of the Hammersmith and Fulham Climate Carnival. The Hammersmith and Fulham Council is obviously committed to rising to the challenge of the climate and ecological emergency. In fact, it's one of our 6 key values as an organisation. The climate and ecological emergency is a top priority for the council, as we know that tackling carbon emissions and air quality benefits health, well-being and the quality of life for all our residents. Now, central to tackling climate change, the ecological decline and the air quality crisis is how we travel. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. The sort of transport we use, the way we access goods, and the way we access services. Now, whether we're just visiting friends or family, or whether we're commuting to school or to work, it all has an impact on our environment. I don't think I need to tell any of you that Hammersmith and Fulham is a really dense urban environment, but it is nonetheless well served by public transport with many tube and rail hubs, bus routes and so on. Now, in the council, we're working really hard to try and ensure that any new services that are introduced safely, responsibly and cost effectively. And things like the e-scooter rentals that you've seen around the streets, electric bike rentals, car and van clubs. We've led the way with one of the biggest electric vehicle charging point networks in the country. And these are there to help those that need to drive to be able to switch to electric vehicles without worrying about where they'll charge. We've also led the way with our zero emissions last mile delivery and courier service, Parcels Not Pollution. But nonetheless, despite all the things that we're doing, we still need a really big shift from all of us. And we're up for the challenge to enable more walking and more cycling, transition to electric vehicles, managing freight more sustainably, and a change of approach to thinking about road space as an asset of community value. So that's why I'm here. We're really excited to showcase some of the fantastic work that's already happening in our borough to do with transport. After I finish speaking, you will hear from some of the great organisations that are here tackling the climate emergency and improving our local community. Look, that's enough from me. So all I can say now is I hope you're going to come away from this morning and today feeling inspired, energised and ready to help us make walking, cycling and public transport, car and van clubs and electric vehicles, that's a mouthful, isn't it, the norm in Hammersmith and Fulham. Enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harcourt. Great to have you here as well. So during the session, we are going to hear from 3 different teams at the council. We're going to have an introduction from the climate emergency team and then hear about options for walking, cycling from our active travel team. And then we'll hear from our transport team who will be talking about public transport in the borough, improving air quality and electric vehicles. So again, please use the chat for questions and comments and we'll get to those in the Q&A at the end. And now I'll hand over to Hanesh, who will give a bit of an introduction.
Thanks, Emily, and welcome everyone to another session of our Climate Carnival. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just quickly introducing the topic of the future of travel, which unfortunately you might think is about drones and hyperloops and other things you read about in the news, but actually what we're really aiming for in a net zero borough is this, and this is our vision for what a future a 2030 net zero borough might look like. So in 2030, residents and visitors to the borough take pleasure in travelling by foot, bike and public transport along safe, healthy and green streets. The fewer vehicles that remain on our roads are clean and zero carbon, and residents make sustainable choices for travelling beyond the borough, make fewer polluting journeys overall and improve their well-being with more walking and cycling. Next slide please, Emily. So our strategy can really, our net zero transport strategy can be summarised in this pyramid. So digital communication is at the top, and that reduces the need for travel. Walking and wheeling next, followed by cycling, public and shared transport, electric vehicles and car sharing, and then finally, as the sort of last resort in 2030, would be looking at petrol and diesel vehicles and hopefully phasing them out. At the moment, road transport accounts for about 15% of carbon emissions in Hammersmith and Fulham. So our goal is to really enable that less travel, more local travel, and really considering our roads as a valuable community asset rather than bits of tarmac for bits of metal to drive across. So part of that is improvements in our infrastructure and the public realm to enable more walking and cycling. So what are we doing in Hammersmith and Fulham? Well, we're going to hear from a few speakers in a moment, and what we're doing as a council is working towards a net zero transport system and enabling active travel, expanding cleaner public transport and increasing vehicle sharing and electric vehicles. So walking, cycling and public transport already make up 72% of journeys in Hammersmith and Fulham, and the borough is transitioning to electric with 5% of all electric vehicles registered in London based in Hammersmith and Fulham. And we've got a network of over 500 charging points, one of the largest in the UK. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand over to Philippa to talk about walking, cycling and active travel.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. As Hinesh has been talking about, we would like people to feel, everyone really, to feel that they can walk and cycle safely anywhere in the borough, because how we travel is absolutely critical to our journey to getting to carbon zero. So I work for the active travel team, and we look after walking, cycling, active travel, which includes e-scooters, e-bikes, and our cargo bike delivery, as well as cycle storage. So let's start off with secure cycle parking and storage. We know that this is really a huge issue among people who cycle in Hammersmith and Fulham. Cycle parking is really, really pressured in the borough, and we do understand that, and we are listening to you. We have 40 bike hanger units dotted around the borough at the moment, and that means 240 secure storage spaces to date. There is a long waiting list for bike hanger units, and we are aiming to triple the current figure by May next year. What that means practically is 80 more bike hanger units across the borough, with 720 spaces. We know that there are more that are needed, and we are working to get more in place. We have just had planning approved, which we're really excited about, for a big secure hub for 90 cycles. That's been approved for underneath the Hammersmith flyover, so central Hammersmith, and that hopefully is going to be in place by next spring as well. Bikeability is back for those of you who have children in primary schools. They may well have done bikeability, or they're about to do bikeability if they're in years 5 and 6. We're really excited about that. That obviously had to stop during lockdown. We were really thrilled to see that adult cycle training went up 1/3 in lockdown. That's really, really great news. More adults learning how to cycle properly on the roads. We deliver all levels of cycle training, from complete beginners to seasoned commuters, and it is free. So, you know, do give us a shout and ask how you can access that. We also offer free doctor bike sessions. We've got one today at Lyric Square between 11 and 4. They are designed to help you maintain your bike so as that you can keep it road safe and cycling. And then we also offer free family cycle training, just to help you change the way perhaps you travel to school. If you're currently driving to school because you don't feel the roads are safe enough, then come and get some free family cycle training and learn how to cycle to school. We are also acutely aware of the need for safe cycling infrastructure. And again, we are working hard on that. So we currently have, you may well have seen a lot of work going on King Street over the past few months. The interim segregated cycleway is due to be open actually in December. So next month. That's really great news. And then gyratory works to make Hammersmith Broadway safe for cycling is due to begin in November and to complete in spring 2022. So that's just going to be transformative, really, for cycling in central Hammersmith, and we're really looking forward to that all opening. We've also got some works planned in the north of the borough, from Decane Road down to Shepherd's Bush Green, along Wood Lane. Construction is planned for late 2022, so it's going through all its design phases at the moment, and then complete in 2023. And again, that will be transformative for that part of the borough, so really looking forward to it. There are other ways to get around. New ways you might have seen people getting around are on the e-scooters. We are taking part in a big e-scooter trial with 3 providers, Dot, Tier and Lime. They're going to be at an event that we're running today on Lyric Square. So do come and say hello if you're around and about today. You can come and meet the e-scooter folk and find out what the deal is and how safe they are, and learn a bit more about them. They're proving to be quite popular. 55,000 trips made since June. Totaling nearly 155,000 kilometres, so that's taken quite a few cars off the road. You have to be over 18, and you also have to have a driving licence in order to use the e-scooters. The trial is likely to be extended to the end of next year, so we've got a good long time to really embed it in the borough and see whether it works. And then e-bikes, also Dot, Lime and Tier e-bikes are expected in spring 2022, so those should give residents even more travel options. We also have a great e-cargo last mile delivery service called Parcels Not Pollution. It's zero carbon. It's designed to take vans off the road. We are offering local businesses £250 vouchers to give this service a try. What £250 means is up to 50 free deliveries of a radius of up to sort of 3 miles or 5 kilometres. Again, you can meet them today on Lyric Square, or you can find them via our website, Parcels Not Pollution. It's a great offer. Don't miss out. It really is a good offer. And the service is best used for multiple drops or to carry bulk loads up to 125 kilograms. And walking, Hammersmith and Fulham has some really, really great walking opportunities. We've got a beautiful riverfront. We have 50 parks, 19 with green flag status. So really some of the really beautiful parks. Green flag status is a really coveted award. Lots of quiet routes. You'll know that being outdoors is just really fantastic for mental and physical health. And there are just so many opportunities to be outdoors in Hammersmith and Fulham. We've drawn up 8 short traffic-free walking routes. And if you search Well Walk on the council website, you'll find details about those. And that's it. We hope to see you at Lyric Square today between 11 and 4. And I'm going to hand over to Lewis Oldfield.
Thank you, Philippa. Hi, my name's Lewis Oldfield. I also work in the transport team at Hammersmith and Fulham Council, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about public transport in the borough. Now, public transport in the borough sits pretty much in 4th place behind digital communications, walking and wheeling and cycling, but nonetheless it is still a very important and integral part of how people can get around in the borough. Now, the borough is very, very well served by public transport. There's over 60 bus routes that come into the borough from all parts of the city. You can get absolutely anywhere on a bus. And many of the routes, a lot of them, operate 24 hours a day, because as we all know, London is a 24-hour city, and there's lots of people that need to get to work and various other things at all times of the day. We at the borough are very keen to work with Transport for London to make all of the buses that come into the borough as clean and as green as possible. Many are electric, and we're very keen to work with TfL on electrification of routes. We also work very closely with TfL on bus priority measures in the borough. These are ways to keep buses running quickly, to keep journey times down. And in Hammersmith and Fulham, we have some pretty good bus journey times and pretty decent bus speeds as well, comparable with other boroughs and in places even quicker. Bus priority measures can mean things like bus lanes, adjustments to signals at junctions to give priority to buses, and we also look to see what else we can do when doing these things that will bring benefits to all road users as well, which is very good. We also have 10 rail and tube stations in the borough, with 6 tube, rail and overground lines going to all parts of the city as well. And one of the other things just to mention with regards to public transport in the borough is we're very, very keen to make sure that we do things in a joined up kind of way. For instance, the cycle hub that's going to be underneath the flyover in Hammersmith is an example of this. We want to make it easy for people to come off of a tube or rail and then straight onto some form of active transport where possible, so that they can make that last mile or half a mile of their journey. So we really need to think in ways that are joined up. So that's really all I've got to say about public transport. Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. We'll now hand over to Dan.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dan McCrory. I'm Principal Transport Planner in the Strategy and Sustainability team in the Transport Department. And I'm going to talk to you briefly about air quality and then a bit about electric vehicles. Now, we all know that traffic is a major contributor to carbon emissions. So on top of the work that Philippa and Lewis are doing in the active travel team, it's all about encouraging better car use, providing real alternatives for private car ownership in order to improve air quality. So just to run through some of the initiatives that we're undertaking. Idling engines. We're expanding our no idling campaign with new signage focused around town centres and schools, providing one of the densest networks of anti-idling in London. We're working with schools to develop healthy streets for schools. These are often pupil-led designs whereby our engineers go in and work with the schools to see what pupils would like to see outside the schools rather than car drop-off areas, providing such things as parklets, some sustainable urban drainage in places and tree planting. We are also developed one of the biggest and densest air quality monitoring networks that works alongside our extensive traffic monitoring networks, allowing us to really understand traffic, how it's moving around the borough, and more importantly, its impacts on air quality. This really allows us to develop targeted and informed interventions that are really going to make a difference to air quality. Other things we have going on, we've had car clubs and van sharing schemes in the borough for a number of years now. Started off with the fixed model back to base, whereby you pick up a car and return it to the same location. More recently, we've introduced Zipcar Flex, which has over 500 vehicles in London. Now these are roaming and you can pick up and drop them off anywhere. You don't need a dedicated car club parking space. They have a floating permit. And importantly, these are good for inter-borough journeys as well. So you're not limited just to Hammersmith and Fulham when you're using it. We've got a Zip Van initiative working with businesses in Shepherd's Bush and Fulham, whereby they can, similar to the car clubs, they've got access to the vans for their business needs, also open to residents outside of business hours. And as we move into 2022, we're going to be working with these car clubs to encourage them to electrify their fleets, starting with the enterprise fixed car club network. Okay, so I've just had a little interruption. We've got emission-based charges operating in the borough to encourage visitors coming into the borough to think about how they're getting here. As Lewis said, we're a well-connected borough, over 60 bus routes and 10 train and rail stations, so there's no real need to drive into the borough unless you really need to. Now, for those that need to, there's a good network of disabled bay provisions and blue badge parking availability. And the residential visitors permit scheme provides a cheaper rate for visitor parking for those that have registered on the scheme. And importantly, we take an approach of area-based interventions. Being led by our residents, we respond to their demands, working with the data we collect through our monitoring networks. We can look at, rather than implementing ad hoc interventions, we'll take an area-based approach where to provide a more holistic set of interventions. And electric vehicles. Important thing we need to do, we need to understand, is that people do want and need cars. I do myself. But what we also need to understand is people do want to make this switch, and we're doing all we can to try and support them in making that switch. So if we start with resident demand, since 2015, all our site development for electric vehicle charging points has been resident-led, responding to resident demand. In 2017, we set up an online consultation, and it has now reached 1,500 requests. We've delivered 500 charge points in response to those requests and developed one of the densest charge point networks in London. And that is due to expand over the coming years quite significantly. And just as an indication of what that can achieve, on the lamp column charge points alone, our residents have driven over 500 million miles, green miles, saving over 18 million kilograms of carbon dioxide, which sounds an incredible amount. Okay, and the types of charge point we offer in the borough. There are 3 categories of charge points. We have our residential charging network, which offer a lower charge suitable for overnight long-term parking. We have one, as I've said previously, the highest density of residential charge points in London, currently standing at 350, set to increase by another 300 this year alone, and moving into 22-23, looking to expand that up to 2,000, providing a charge point in every single residential street. Destination charge points. These provide a slightly faster charge, more suited for vehicles that are short stay parking, likely to find them where you would find pay and display, or visitors parking close to shops and attractions and likewise. Then we have the rapid charge points. These will give you 80% charge in 20 minutes, more suited for your commercial vehicles, type of charge point that you would find on the motorways. And again, we're developing these both internally on council-owned land, but then also supporting the private industry to develop rapid charging hubs. Places like Shell petrol station down in Fulham is due to become the first ever petrol station in the world that is going to fully transition to electric vehicle charging. And the BP garage on the A4 has 350 kilowatt chargers. So we're talking about 8 minutes for an 80% charge, almost comparable to filling up with petrol if you factor in going into the shop and having to pay. Now, one thing I would say, it's important for those considering making the switch. Charging your vehicle is not like standard refueling. You top up, you would very rarely go below the orange line, i.e. below sort of 20-30%. So it's important to just consider that and don't be anxious about the need to be charging every night or every time you stop. When you've got a range of up to 150 miles, in reality, you're probably only going to need to find a charge 2 or 3 times a week. Okay, and then just to sort of emphasise some of the things that we're doing for our residents to support the switch, it's not just about providing the charge points. We're also providing discounted parking permits. So that's a free parking permit for fully electric vehicles, discounted permits for vehicles producing less than 100 grams per kilometre of CO2. All our charge points are resident demand led. So we have the online consultation page. We map all of those requests. We find the most suitable places to meet that demand based on that output. And most recently, we have started undertaking providing charge points for disabled drivers with dedicated parking spaces. And so they can be retrofitted to existing personalised bays, or we're also going to include the option going forward for new applications. And I think that is all from me. So back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, you handled that very well. Wouldn't be an online webinar without a door opening and a little one running in. So thank you very much to all of our speakers this morning, Councillor Harcourt, Hanesh, Philippa, Lewis and Dan. So I'm just going to pause the recording now. Thanks for that, everyone. So finally, just before we wrap up, what is on today? If you have a look at the programme, which is on lbhf.gov.uk/climate-carnival, you can have a look at some of the events that are happening today. We've usually got a couple of webinars in the afternoon and lots of events happening out and about all over the borough. So please do have a look. We've got over 50 things happening this week. So please do check out the programme and get involved if you have time later today. And finally, just before we wrap up, please do sign up to our newsletter. So this is a monthly newsletter all about climate action taking place across the borough. We talk about what we're doing as a council, things that are happening in the community, things you can get involved in, as well as what we're reading and sharing. So if you head to the climate pages on our website, you can sign up for Climate Connects. And finally, that's us for this morning. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming along, to all of our speakers for presenting, and for everyone's questions and comments. That's our generic email address there that comes through to me. So look forward to speaking with you there, and our web address as well. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the week.